Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another episode of Food Exposed. In today's video guys, we are talking about the chocolate. So did you know that some of the most popular chocolate bars on the market are contaminated with cadmium and lead? And the fact that white chocolate is actually not a chocolate at all? Well, in this video guys, we're going to look at all of the information you need. So by the end of this video, hopefully you can make a better decision when buying one of your chocolate bars. So first of all, okay, you'll probably be aware that chocolate industry is actually dominated by three very large corporations. And we all know, guys, the larger the corporation, the less they care about me and you and what goes inside your chocolate, or in fact, any other food product, because all they care about is money. So there's no surprise that, in most cases, they choose to adulterate our chocolate bars with some fillers, with some sugar, with some hydrogenated fats, and other things we might not want in our chocolate bars. So first of all, okay, let's have a look at the cocoa industry, okay? Ivory Coast and Ghana, okay, supply up to 60% of the world cocoa. But unfortunately, farmers that work on those farms can earn as little as $1 per day. On the top of that, unfortunately, there is child labor issues, okay? And although the major companies that do buy the cocoa, like those big corporations that buy cocoa from those farmers, saying they're trying to do their best, they're trying to, get the fair wages and avoid child laborers. Well, the undercover research found that currently there's 1.5 million of children currently employed as a child laborers in those countries. The worst thing of all as well, that those poor children, unfortunately, on the top of doing the work that they do, they have to spray some pesticides and chemicals on the cocoa and in time end up breathing this in, which causes some severe health issues. So this is a big thing. And to be fair myself, I knew there were some issues in the industry with regards to that kind of thing, but I thought by now things will be a little bit under control and a little bit better, but unfortunately this is not the case. So now guys, let's actually look at the chocolate adulteration. So the real chocolate should only contain a few ingredients. As I always tell you guys, it's all in the ingredients and we have to make sure that we read what's in our food. So it should contain of cocoa mass, so cocoa solids plus cocoa butter, a small amount of sugar, again, not even every bar of chocolate, and a little bit of milk for the milk chocolate. However, the cheap chocolates are now found to contain palm oils or hydrogenated fats instead of the real cocoa butter, okay, artificial vanillin, okay, instead of the real vanilla, again, only required in certain chocolates, and excessive sugars. Some bars are found to have more than 50% of your chocolate bar of sugar. 50%. This is absolutely crazy. So another thing I mentioned is the heavy metals, okay? And you think, oh my God, what on earth some heavy metals will be doing in our chocolate? Well, okay, so we talked about the cadmium and lead. So the cocoa plants generally, naturally absorb cadmium from the soil, especially if it's a volcanic soil. When we talk about the lead contamination, this is often happens after the harvesting during drying, storage, or processing. But, okay, heavy metals in our bodies are really not good, and we all should be aware of this by now. So cadmium is actually a toxic metal that can damage kidneys and bones with the long-term exposure. And the lead, again, we're all aware of that. Neurotoxin, especially dangerous for children, but of course it's bad for all of us altogether. We're talking about you might think, well, it's only a little bit, what's a big deal? Well, in fact, what's a little bit? Because many people consume cheap chocolate on a daily basis, but, by quite a large amount. So we have to bear this in mind, that a little is a little, but nonetheless, we still don't want it in our bodies. So you might think, why on earth the companies are not testing for the heavy metals? Well, there's literally only a handful of the companies that actually test for the heavy metals. Majority of them don't, because there is no strict global regulation to test the chocolates for heavy metals. So you can see, okay, where I'm going with this one. So anyway, some independent tests found that the dark chocolate, especially 85% of cocoa, often contains higher level due to the nature of the cocoa bean itself. So it is pretty high numbers and it is pretty scary. So to avoid this kind of thing, we need to do some research, and we are talking about, there are some companies that apparently do tell you, and they're quite transparent in whether they do testing on or not. But don't forget, this is not a legal requirement, so they don't even have to tell you if they do or they don't, okay? It's just something that just doesn't get covered. But apparently, okay, the chocolates with a high cadmium content include them coming from the area of Peru, Colombia, and West Africa. So again, something to bear this in mind when you're going shopping is they should double check, if that bothers you, double check where the chocolate is coming from to make sure you're trying to avoid those kind of beans that are really contaminated. So right now, guys, let's talk about the white chocolate. And again, that bothers me, okay? Now I've done this research, I understand the labeling and the rules. It bothers me that they call white chocolate a chocolate because, well, it's in fact not a chocolate. So real chocolate must contain cocoa solids, or in brackets, cocoa mass. But while the white chocolate actually contains 0 cocoa solids. So why are they still allowing this to be called white chocolate? I don't know. So instead of white chocolate made from cocoa butter, technically if it's a decent one, sugar, more often than 50%, milk powder or milk fat, and some artificial flavors to improve the texture. So think about it now, okay? So we literally have fat and chocolate. Fat and sugar. I'm not a big fan of chocolate. I don't care for much for chocolate. I do or did buy the cheap chocolate for my prepping journey and for the baking only. But if I did choose to have a little bit of chocolate, I normally go for a white chocolate. But now, understanding, okay, the fact is literally contains of fat and sugar, it's going to be no go for me. Because again, many people think the misconception that the chocolate is actually good for you. Well, in fact, if we're buying a bar of chocolate that contains of mostly fat and sugars, this definitely is not going to be good for you. And a fact, okay, that many manufacturers don't actually even use a real cocoa butter. So for it to be called even a white, substance, not a chocolate, but it has to contain a real cocoa butter. But unfortunately, many brands replace that with things like a palm oil or hydrogenated vegetable fats. So this is, again, pretty disgusting in my opinion. So and also they said that some white chocolate actually contain titanium dioxide. It's a whitening agent that linked to gut and immune system issues. So they all talking generally about how it tastes, the flavor, and how it looks. And apparently they think that we people that want to consume white chocolate, we feel that we want it to be a bit whiter so it looks a bit more appealing. Go figure. So now, guys, let's talk about the labeling. That's pretty much very, very straightforward. So milk chocolate, okay, should contain at least 20% cocoa solids. Dark chocolate should contain at least 35% of cocoa solids. And the white chocolate must contain at least 20% cocoa butter. There's no cocoa solids required because it's technically not a chocolate, but the cocoa butter should be the main ingredient. And up to 5% vegetable fats like palm oils are allowed, but they must be declared on the label. But again, it doesn't always happen. So after, doing research and looking at the chocolate bars, right? So barely of them sometimes meet the requirements, minimum requirements, and yet are still allowed to be called chocolates. Okay, that's really annoying. And again, some cheap chocolates can contain less than 5%, okay, of cocoa butter, and they're still allowed to call themselves a white chocolate. Again, this is, to me, it's really out of order. So when we're talking about the purchasing or choosing the chocolate that you might want, obviously looking at the labels, guys, is an absolute must. And this is what I keep telling you. It is absolutely paramount that we look on the labels. But so content for the cocos, okay, for the chocolate. So cocoa content, 70% plus for the dark chocolate or 30% for the milk as a bare minimum for you to get a better value for money and actually something that's, going to be a little bit better for your health. Obviously something that should mention the cocoa butter rather than any other vegetable fats, and of course trying to look out for chocolate bar that will have natural vanilla rather than artificial vanilla, because in the end of the day all of this that made there for them to make more money, so they basically put a shit ingredients, just to maximize their profit. And again then, guys, the next thing really is looking out for the Fair Trade, Organic and Rainforest Alliance. But unfortunately, even that is got its own issues. So organic is specific matter, guys. We discussed this in many instances. But let's talk about the Rainforest Alliance, because even on the cheapest bars of chocolate, okay, Rainforest Alliance logo, which is the green frog, is actually present. So the goals of the Rainforest Alliance is environmental protection. So they try to reduce deforestation. We've got the fair wages and workers' rights. So they're concentrating on making sure that this is what happens. Climate resilience, so it promotes farming techniques that help crops withstand climate change. Ethical sources, so it works with the companies to ensure they source ingredients responsibly and without harming ecosystems or exploiting workers. Well, unfortunately, as we already established, this is not the case. And okay, many people, many companies, in fact, using a loophole. And they're doing what they call the greenwashing, which means that they're purchasing chocolate or cocoa from a Rainforest Alliance farm, okay, and then they purchase it from another farm that's not certified by Rainforest Alliance, and then they mix it together, okay, and, okay, this is called greenwashing. They're still allowed to use the Rainforest Alliance logo because, well, technically they bought from this, but again, there is no stringent control. It's like when we covered the food exposed and we covered other things where companies buy things from a different areas, be it honeys or olive oils, and then mix that together, and this is what pretty much happens. But it is such a loophole because even as I said, guys, on the cheaper bars of chocolate, we have the Rainforest Alliance, and we're talking those chocolate bars are like 36 pence. So anyway, okay, as I said, there are companies there that are far more expensive per chocolate bar, but they kind of, not say guarantee, but they a little bit more transparent to what they do. Okay, so they have, you know, websites, they explain to you where they get their cocoa, that kind of thing. So I think it's very important to understand. It's not just, because I know, I totally get that not for everybody the ethics come into play, but to me the ingredients are very, very important. So amongst many chocolate bars that you have here, okay, I've been buying chocolate over the long period of time as a prepper, as I said, for cooking. But now I looked in the labels and it's actually quite a vast difference, okay, in the chocolate bars, even from the bottom range of the supermarkets. They do all have, give or take, some different ingredients. So, I had the dark chocolate here, okay, I won't mention the brand, but it does say it has first ingredient, 70% cocoa mass, and then you got sugar, cocoa butter, fat-reduced cocoa powder. Cocoa powder shouldn't be there. We're talking about the cocos, right? That's what the chocolate's made from. But then we've got emulsifiers, natural vanilla flavorings, and it just says dark chocolate contains cocoa solids, right? And then we look at another bottom one. So the first ingredient is sugar. And we already know by the regulations and the labeling that the ingredients have to be listed in descending order of the amount, if that makes sense. So we have sugar is number one ingredient here. To me, that indicates that the sugar, okay, is the majority of what's in this chocolate bar because it's number one. So we have a sugar, we have cocoa mass, we have the whole milk powder, cocoa butter, lactose, emulsifiers, vanilla extract. Milk chocolate contains cocoa solids, 28%, and the milk solid, 14%. And it does say Rainforest Alliance certified. And then you have a look at another one here, okay? And again, sugar is number one on the list. So cocoa mass, cocoa butter, fat-reduced cocoa powder, emulsifiers, and you've got one that called polyglycerol something else, right? And this one apparently used for the texture and the easy meltiness of chocolate in your mouth, if that makes sense. But it doesn't appear in all of the brands, it appears in some, but nonetheless, it should not be there. We really don't want it because if it's a quality chocolate, you want to taste the chocolate, not the sugar, and it will naturally just melt in your mouth anyway. Okay, anyway, and yes, it's got the Rainforest Alliance certified. And then basically you just go through, some of them are really, really tiny, and it's really, really difficult to actually make out the ingredients, but it's more than 3 ingredients on the list. And again, it all depends, right? There's so many chocolate bars on there. So the point to you guys, okay, I'm going to stop beating this around the bush. So if the ethicals bother you, then you have to start looking into and researching the decent brands, the smaller brands, not the ones you kind of see, on the supermarket shelves. And the other best thing, if you do shop in the supermarkets for the chocolate, is just simply look at the ingredients. So technically, like with anything, the less the ingredients are there at the back of the chocolate bar, then the better it will be for you. And, okay, just the one thing, guys, to point out, if you're buying the chocolate for the health benefits, then the darker the chocolate, the better it is for you, but obviously in a small quantities. So there we are, guys. Hopefully I haven't depressed you too much with that kind of thing. It's not so more of a shocker of what they put in it, but in fact, the whole industry, how corrupted this is for the companies to make money. So anyway, I do hope that you have found this video helpful. If you did, please don't forget thumbs up, subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye bye.